NFL rankings 2021 on to the quarterbacks. Most interesting, the most important, all that stuff, obviously. Let's get into it. Really excited for this. So notes with this, injuries not in consideration. It's just when this player is on the field fully healthy, what do they provide? What do they give your team? I think that's the most useful way of looking at this. Not necessarily like who I'd have for the next 5 years or whatever, or anything like that. It's who do I think is the best, provides the most when they're on your team. This is for just this season, not like going forward, whenever. It's just for this year, 2021. Like I said, it's not who's the most skilled, who's the most athletic. It's just who is, when they're your quarterback, provides you with the most to help you win football games. Not fantasy rankings and no rookies in consideration. Once they get to the NFL, I can tell you how good they are. Until then, I don't think there's much of a point in it. So first 5 out. And already probably one big one here, Joe Burrow. People thought he was going to be really good at coming out of college. Meh. Now, he played very few games. He didn't have much of an offseason. Could he be a lot better than this? Yeah, I suppose. But from the time he played in the NFL, was there anything that stands out that put him ahead of the guys that actually made the top 20? Definitely not. So for now, that's where he goes. And on to the top 20. This first tier here. So with quarterbacks, just in general, what's important to remember is what actually makes a quarterback valuable or not. And while there are things that look really good in highlights and there are things that look really good for fantasy, in terms of actually winning games, I think there's actually not that many things that are super valuable. Some of them are consistently making correct decisions. Some of them are being able to do things that are actually useful that other quarterbacks can't do. For example, like just because a quarterback can escape, 10 people, but then doesn't end up making a play, isn't always as valuable as it looks like it should be because it looks so, entertaining and fun. And then the last thing is probably their ability / willingness to use the areas of the football field past 10, 15 yards, because tons of good things happen for the offense down there, like almost all the time, and it's really important to be able to go down there. So we have these first 3 in this tier: Ryan Fitzpatrick, Gardner Minshew, Carson Wins. And this is characterized, Ryan Fitzpatrick and Gardner Minshew specifically are characterized by consistently making actually good decisions close to line of scrimmage. Now, that's not the reputation Ryan Fitzpatrick has, but I think the reputation he has is just bonkers. If you actually watch how he plays, at least the last couple of years, we've been on the Dolphins, and then last year, he consistently makes good decisions near the line of scrimmage, actually. He knows what he's doing as far as reading NFL defenses. He doesn't actually take a bunch of horrible chances, really. Now, under pressure, he can get kind of bad about it, but is he much worse than even a guy like Carson Wins right here? I don't think so at all. This idea that he just throws, YOLO jump balls, this doesn't really happen. Did when he was on the Buccaneers a little bit, but that's a huge part of the product of the offense and the receivers he was playing with. Because other than that, this is not really the case. He also provides a little bit in terms of pocket mobility, all that type of stuff. Now, what keeps him down is he's not like perfect with all that stuff. He is more turnover prone than basically everyone else on the list as far as those decisions, because when he makes wrong ones, his are real bad as opposed to some other guys. So that's something to know with him. Gardner Minshew, he's basically 80% of Deshawn Watson. They play effectively the same way. Gardner Minshew, just because of his little bit of lack of athleticism and arm strength, has a little less access to the high end of plays, which doesn't matter. There's obviously going to be a big gulf in rankings between the two. But as a player, when you get a quarterback, you talk about a guy, so you consistently move your offense down the field. If you put him in positive positions and your defense isn't giving up 40 points a game with 35 minutes possession for the other team, and he can make plays. He legitimately avoids pressure consistently. He actually, as a runner, is fairly useful, can do things out of the pocket. Not many guys around him can. And, it's a legitimately good quarterback, just put in a really tough situation. Then we have Carson Wins. So Carson Wins is a little bit different than the other guys in that he doesn't consistently make good decisions near the line of scrimmage. He's not, like, horrible at it. He's not, Daniel Jones. He's not Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not those guys. But he can make mistakes there for sure. What allows him to be on this list at all is there's some things he does mentality-wise especially that many other quarterbacks just don't do that adds a lot of value. It's things like on a 3rd and 8, he'll actually throw it 8 yards. In fact, he will refuse to throw it unless it's 8 yards, which can lead to some ugly sacks. It can lead to some unnecessary scrambling that leads to too many hits and fumbles, that type of thing for sure. And that does hurt. But over the course of however many third downs a quarterback faces over the course of a year, it actually adds a ton of value. Just the willingness, the insistence that he has to, throw it past the line of scrimmage, or throw it past the first down marker, throw it into the end zone. Those types of things that he does all the time. Actually pretty good. And with his athleticism, arm strength, that type of stuff, he's actually capable of doing things like that. And there's going to be a big gap between him and the next guy who can do the things that he does, which is probably looking at it like maybe Justin Herbert in terms of down the field playmaking. And yeah, he's willing to throw the ball far down the field. So yeah, Carson Wins, some real downsides there. It's why he's down here, but obviously some big upsides. Then we get the next tier. These guys are all really similar. And basically these are quarterbacks who don't use the area down the field nearly as much as they should, which is what hurts them and keeps them down here, but are going to constantly make good decisions and move your offense up down the field and provide value that way. That's Ben Roethlisberger, Baker Mayfield, and Derek Carr. All guys pretty similar. They, of course, they have their own individual quirks and stuff like that, and they're in a little bit, different situations. But these guys all do provide a pretty decent amount of value just in terms of hitting open things. And it's not like they're, they're not Teddy Bridgewater out here, right? Like they actually do throw the ball down the field at times, especially into positive situations. Now they're not great at it. That's another separator, the actual talent they have as far as putting the ball into good spaces down the field, but they're not horrible at it. They can definitely, all of them, I think, at different times have piloted top 5 offenses in the NFL for sure. So you put them in good situations, they're going to provide value, but as individuals, are they necessarily better than anyone ahead of them? I don't think so. So then we have the next tier. This one, pretty big tier. I think this is the biggest tier on this list. And there's going to be a lot of different styles of quarterbacks here, but all of these guys, keep in mind, are good, are 100% into the good, positive category. So first, Kylie Murray. Why is he this low? A lot of people probably think he should be higher. Again, that's kind of a highlight type thing versus actual production and actual ability to lead a positive scoring NFL offense. And Kyler Murray does some things that are really, really good. Obviously, his legs are amazing, second to only Lamar Jackson in the NFL. He has the ability to put touch throws into windows that nobody else maybe in the NFL can. Outside of the top 3, he is incredibly good at that. The problem is he doesn't do those things consistently. He consistently, an interesting quirk with him. Yeah, he's really good at touch throws, like I said, one of the best, absolute best in the NFL. He can put a ball into space to lead a receiver really, really well. But he is garbage tier for on Madden, if you hold the button like a bullet pass. For some reason, when he throws things that way, his mechanics change and he's real bad at it. Real bad at it. He misses a lot of throws. And for whatever reason, despite the clear and obvious difference between the two styles of mechanics and throwing he has, he opts for the one he's bad at a large amount of the time. And that's what keeps him down here. He could be a lot better. He probably will be a lot better going forward. But as of now, he still just does too many dumb things that he should know better than to do. And yeah, as a decision maker, he's not on the level of the guys ahead of him at all at this point. He is held back by a really stupid offense he plays in for sure. But yeah, he adds value. I think he's going to get way higher in this list as his career goes forward as the things he has now. But as of now, he just makes too many bad decisions and opts to do too many things that are just weird that the guys ahead of him don't do. Number 13, Kirk Cousins. So Kirk Cousins is just the next evolution of that tier behind this with the Roethlisberger, Mayfield, Carr at this point in his career, because he does all the things that they do. He just adds in a really, really, really high level ability to throw the ball down the field. One of the absolute best deep passers in the NFL. Now, his problem, kind of similar to Kyler Murray, is he just doesn't do it nearly enough. No, he doesn't enough to matter and to add value, but he could be even a lot better than this if he had whatever, if you switched him and Carson Wins' brain, at least for, past 15 yards, you'd be talking about one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL because he doesn't do a whole lot of things wrong. His problems, of course, a gigantic flaw of being unable to cope with any level of pressure between the tackles in any meaningful way. And that really hurts because that is a thing that happens in the NFL. That's what keeps him down here. Again, he would be a lot higher without that. But just even as he is, he does provide a ton of value, and I think is very underrated according to a lot of people. Because, he's pretty situation-proof, even production-wise. Not that I believe a whole lot in production speaking to the level of a quarterback, but, yeah, he's really good. Number 12, Justin Herbert, outstanding as a rookie. Especially what I want to talk about is mentally. He was really impressive because it's not just, the arm strength or whatever that people said he would be. He, as a mental quarterback, was not quite a finished product, but he made good decisions all the time. He was willing to put the ball in the air early and often into good situations, and it worked out. He could deal with pressure, at least to a point that makes me comfortable putting him there and to a point that makes me think he's just going to get better at it. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has all the positive traits you could really want. He just, outside of some rookie mistakes as far as a decision maker, and he's not like an elite guy between 0 and 10 yards like the guys behind him and ahead of him, really, but really, really good even just as a rookie. Outstanding. Number 11, Ryan Tannehill, actually pretty similar to Justin Herbert, to be honest with you. It looks a little bit different for sure. Ryan Tannehill a little bit more risk averse and a little bit better in terms of making decisions near the line of scrimmage. He was boosted by playing in an offense that really lended itself to easy decisions there with Arthur Smith and the Titans, but didn't mean he wasn't good at it. And one thing notable about him too, I think it's really underrated, his pocket presence, his ability to slide in the pocket to avoid pressure and to not get panicked when guys are breathing down on him. It is underrated. He's really good at that too, especially at this point in his career. So yeah, Ryan Tannehill provides a lot of value. Definitely a good quarterback. Then we're still in the same tier here, but we're on to Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I would have told you before the year that he was a lot better than people thought he was, but now I'm going to pull back a little bit and say he's not like neither him or the next guy or this, like the talk of them being like top 5 quarterbacks or whatever at this point is laughable for sure. But they do provide a ton of value. Josh Allen specifically actually does make a lot better decisions than he's given credit for, despite him throwing to very wide open receivers very often. But he's still doing it and doing it well and doing it a lot. He obviously provides a lot of value on the ground. And he's overall, a really positive player. Also, one thing I should have been kind of talking about too is with quarterbacks, you'll see some of them are good once they get to the red zone. They're positives. They know what they're doing. They can make good decisions. They can actually turn your drives into touchdowns. Some of them can't. We've talked about some that can't. Kirk Cousins struggles with that. Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield struggle with that. Josh Allen does not. He's very good at that. And that's what keeps him this high, number 10. He is still like far from perfect as a decision maker. He is more prone to turnovers than all the guys we talked about so far, basically, except for, Gardner Minshew and Carson Wentz. But the positives he brings are really, really big. Deshaun Watson, I'm not going to talk about the situation or whatever. Just as a player, like I said, the idea that he's a top 5 quarterback is nuts, is ridiculous. He consistently loses his team yards. I think he's actually very similar to Saquon Barkley. How Saquon Barkley is as running back, he is as a quarterback in terms of the highlights look really, really good. He can do things that basically no other quarterback can do. That's not quite the case here. He can't do anything that the top 3 guys can't, but he consistently hurts his team and loses his team yards, which is what keeps him here. Now, I still think he's in the top 10. He can make a lot of positive plays. He adds a lot with his legs. He's willing to throw the ball down the field. He can be accurate, but don't overlook what doesn't show up on red zone, because he is real bad at that stuff as opposed to everyone else around him. Even Josh Allen, he's worse than. So, yeah, Deshaun Watson. Next, Dak Prescott. So why is Dak Prescott ahead of the guys behind him? Basically because he does what they do, just a little bit better and without as many mistakes. Now, he does miss the high-end like athletic stuff, but A, that stuff barely comes up in any given game. I mean, that's like 1 or 2 plays. B, those guys behind him it's not like they're that much better at it. Most of the stuff that they can do, Dak Prescott can also do. He's still pretty athletic. He does add value on the ground. As far as a decision maker, actually near the line of scrimmage, especially at the snap, he's like really, really, really good. He can identify matchups really quickly and be right about them. Dak Prescott underrated. Kind of people missed out on seeing how good he would have been. He would have had a Josh Allen type year last year if he wasn't hurt. I'm very confident in that. And I think he will this year too. So yeah, Dak Prescott absolutely belongs this high. But now we're into the next tier, and these are the guys who are real good at this point. All these guys, super, super big positives, easy Super Bowl contenders if they're on a good team. This tier specifically, basically Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford are basically they're the next evolution even of that Kirk Cousins tier I was talking about. But then you also add in the willingness and ability to throw the ball down the field of guys like Justin Herbert, of guys like Josh Allen. Now, can they get it as far on the field? No, but is it a meaningful difference in the course of an actual NFL game? No. Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford, they constantly make really good decisions. They're really, really, really good about putting the ball in the air in the right spaces. They can anticipate defenses, read defenses really well. They're really good. So that sounds perfect, right? So what's the difference between them and the guys ahead of them? Well, some things. The main one being both of these guys are really mediocre in the red zone, and it is their fault. Now, their offenses don't necessarily help them a lot that they played in throughout their careers, but they both get panicked too easily down. They're clearly like they make different decisions, have different decision-making processes within the 10, 15-yard line as opposed to the rest of the field, and that hurts them. That's why they're down here. The other things, they're not as mobile. They don't have as much value to the legs as the other guys. But one thing I'll kind of talk about there with that too that's important to keep in mind is ability with your legs and running as a quarterback. It's not a ceiling raising proposition, right? It's not something that gets like, oh, well, he can do all this other stuff. Then you add that, and now he's the best quarterback in the NFL. I completely disagree with that. I think it's a floor raising thing. It's like, well, even if he sucks all other stuff, at least he has that, right? Even if a play goes really bad, at least he has the chance to do that. And that's good. It's valuable. It keeps guys like, Deshaun Watson in the top 10, or Josh Allen in the top 10. But what actually creates ceiling is a guy who's like never wrong, who never even gets to that point in a play because he's always making a right decision right away at the line of scrimmage, putting the ball, like I said, in the air early into the right spaces. That's what creates ceiling. That's how you get seasons like what Tom Brady's had in Super Bowl winning years. That's how you get the Matt Ryan Super Bowl team with the Falcons. All that stuff, the real like elite offenses that weren't just putting up yards in garbage time, that were putting up yards in meaningful wins and blowing teams out. That's how that happens. And Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford actually have the ceiling to do that as opposed to basically anyone else that we've talked about so far. So really good, just those things. And then Lamar Jackson, obviously very different. Because he's kind of the opposite. His floor is so high because of what he can do with his legs. And as a quarterback, he's not bad at all. Even if you took, if you halved his rushing ability, he would probably be in the tier behind this, right around Kyler Murray, just a little bit ahead of him. But when you add that in, because he's so much better than everyone else in the NFL outside of Kyler Murray, that it provides such a gigantic floor that like the likelihood outside of wild circumstances of holding Lamar Jackson under 21, 24 points it's borderline impossible. And you see that throughout his career. I think it's happened like 1 or 2 times total in 4 years or 3 years, whatever. And he just provides a ton of value all the time, being able to do that. And like I said, as a quarterback over the middle of the field, he's one of the best in the NFL. He's really, really good at that. Now the offense does contribute to that, and he does have issues working outside of the lines of outside of the numbers for sure. But it's not like he's horrible at that. I think it's pretty clear if you look at the way he plays that he's willing to do that. It's just the way his offense is constructed doesn't really ask him to, and doesn't provide him a lot of options out there. So yeah, Lamar Jackson, really, really good, provides a ton of value. And then we're on to the next tier. And tier by himself, Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the peak. He's everything I talked about, all those big positives, Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford. But you take the struggles in the red zone and turn them into like one of the best in the red zone. You get Tom Brady. Only weakness, obviously, this area of mobility. It doesn't add anything is on the ground, but so good at the other stuff. Provides such an incredibly high ceiling because of that. Easily belongs here. Then the top 3. Number 3, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is incredible. He's so good. He does actually, you could argue, basically everything Tom Brady does, but then you add in like a good, not elite quite, but like very good ability on the ground and to use his legs to avoid things. And you get this incredibly good player. Now, why can it look like that's not the case? One, well, he plays in the single stupidest offense in the entirety of the NFL and has for years. It's basically, I don't see how you could argue with that, really. If you look at the way Pete Carroll runs things and how he asks players to move, it's ridiculous. I'm not going to get a ton of schematics of it right now, but the point is, when Russell Wilson is allowed to make like NFL decisions, he makes them borderline perfectly. Outside of some weird, notable quirk weaknesses that lead to things like bad pick sixes on like flat routes for no reason. But that's a very, very uncommon thing that happens like once a season, basically. And the rest of the time, yeah, he's really, really good. He avoids pressure better than every other quarterback in the entirety of the NFL. He provides a ton of value. His willingness and ability to put the ball in the air down the field is second to probably only Patrick Mahomes. And he's incredibly good at it. And basically, when he's your quarterback, he turns so many drives into touchdowns that he belongs in the top 3, no question. So then number 2, Patrick Mahomes. If you want to put him at number 1, I get it. A lot of people would. whatever. I don't think it's really a meaningful difference. But what is Patrick Mahomes, right? Why is he a number 2 for me? Well, because as an actual decision-making quarterback, I would argue that he wouldn't even be in this tier or the Tom Brady's tier. He would be the one behind that. Like, he's good at that stuff. He makes good decisions a lot of the times. He knows what he's doing for sure. He can read defenses, all that stuff. He's not bad at it. He's not on the level of Russell Wilson or Tom Brady or the guy at number 1, though. What makes the difference between those guys and him is something I talked about when I talked about how does a quarterback add value at the very beginning. And it's that he does things that no other quarterback in the NFL is even capable of. And the things that he's capable of are actually useful things, right? He doesn't just like avoid 5 guys and then run out of bounds for a 1-yard loss. He consistently avoids 5 guys and then creates 20, 30, 40, 50-yard gains, like a lot. And he's the only quarterback really in the NFL who does that with any level of consistency outside of Russell Wilson. But even then, I mean, you're talking magnitudes of consistency being able to do that. And, that just provides an insane amount of value. Also, in the red zone, he's, I think, tied for the best with the guys at number 1 in terms of actually turning drives into touchdowns because of his actions. And, those things, like, don't get me wrong. I think Patrick Mahomes is incredible. Number 2, basically tied for 1. He's really, really good. incredibly, incredibly good. But just keep in mind that that's kind of why, and that's, I think, why these exercises are interesting, right? Because it's how do you provide value? And it's not always, there's not one way. It's not just by playing quarterback this certain way. It's, you can do other things too. And I think that's Patrick Mahomes is probably the best example of that in the whole NFL. So then at number 1, Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, really it's 1A, 1B with him and Mahomes. My whole thing with him, basically, why I think he's ahead of Mahomes is he is this elite, best in the NFL, tied with probably Tom Brady in terms of decision-making and consistently putting his offenses in good situations. Then you add into that, 75% of the things that Patrick Mahomes can do, 80%, maybe even higher than that. And you get, I would argue, the most valuable quarterback in the NFL, the best quarterback in the NFL, although by a very slim margin. But yeah, when you have him at quarterback, again, you have a guy who's the best in the NFL at turning drives into touchdowns, who combines all the perfection between 0 and 15 yards of Matt Ryan, of Tom Brady, of Matthew Stafford, and then adds that on to the almost, like I said, 80% of what Patrick Mahomes does as a down the field thrower, as a creator, as a guy who turns negative situations into not just positives, but gigantic positives. And that's what gives you number 1. So yeah, I'm definitely comfortable with this list. I could see, quarterback being so situation dependent in terms of what is looked like, who's viewed as good. I can see why people would argue with it. But yeah, that's the top 20 quarterbacks for the 2021 season in the NFL.